Hello everyone, we meet again and we shall discuss more about verbs. As we discussed earlier, why the verbs need to have the conjugated forms and why do we use them that way. Now let us move a bit further. Subject-verb agreement. What is this subject-verb agreement? Yes. Now, let me tell you very clearly. We have a lot of confusions when we come across these things. But before I get into the subject-verb agreement, let me introduce to you the kinds of verbs that we have, apart from the conjugated forms. Now, when I'm talking about verbs, we have two major classification of verbs. One is the main verb and the second one is the auxiliary verb. Now when I'm talking about main verb refers to the verbs that we use like play, go, come. Okay. Again, these main verbs are classified into regular, irregular verbs and also transitive, intransitive verbs. Yes, I shall tell you that because the thing what I have told you earlier in the sentences lesson will be carried forwarded here. Now, the next one, the auxiliary verbs. The auxiliary verbs are really very important. Okay. So when we do not have any main verb in a sentence, the auxiliary verb plays the role of main verb. Now, if I happen to construct a sentence using the auxiliary verb and I do not have the main verbs in it, what would be that sentence? Think for yourself. And I shall tell you that later. Yes. Now, when I am talking about auxiliary verbs, we have 23 auxiliary verbs, which are further divided into 14 helping verbs and 9 modal auxiliaries. Please note, the 14 helping verbs what we learn are really very important. Why? Because they help us to establish the relationship and form the meaning of the main verb. What are auxiliary verbs? They are as follows: is, am, are, was, do, does, did, have, has, had. Okay, I listed a few here. And then when I go to the modal auxiliaries, why they are called as modal auxiliaries? Most of the times it depends on mood of the person and they are used accordingly. I shall go to school. I shall go to the college. I would like to do it. It's something that is your wish or desire, or it depends on your mood. So we call them modal auxiliaries. This is the way you remember them. Will turn to would, shall, should, can, could, may, might and must. Even we use ought, but yes, we learn until must because most of the times we do not get out into the conversation. So again, when I talk about verbs, it is classified into two major groups. One is main verbs, auxiliary verbs. Main verbs, again, they are divided in form of regular, irregular, transitive, intransitive. Whereas when I go into the other part, that is the auxiliary verbs, they are the 23 auxiliary verbs with 14 helping verbs and 9 modal auxiliaries. Okay, now why do you think we need these auxiliary verbs or the helping auxiliaries? Yes, they play a major role in the formation of tenses. Yes, when we are referring to the tenses and the verbs that you use in them, we need helping verbs there. Okay, Now coming to the regular irregular verbs. What is this irregular and irregular? What are these verbs? Very simple. Now the verbs that take ed to form their past tense are called as regular verbs, and the verbs which have the interchange of vowels or the word entirely changes for the sake of past tense are called as irregular verbs. Regular verbs with ed, irregular verbs, interchange of vowels or the word entire changes. Example for the regular verb would be work, worked, ed. Okay, and example for an irregular verb will be run and ran. There is a interchange of vowel. Okay, if I have to tell one more, that is draw. The past tense of draw is drew, again an irregular verb. Okay, so coming to transitive and intransitive verbs. Now when I had mentioned about the sentences in the prior lessons, I also told a predicate must and should have a verb, whereas the object is optional. There comes our transitive, intransitive. Always remember that when we are talking about transitive, intransitive, we are specifically concentrating on the verb. I go. There is no object. I is the subject, go is the verb. If I say I go to the college, I is the subject, go is what? The verb. I go where? Now, please understand this also. Why did I bring that topic here? That is the subject and predicate. Please understand this. When I am talking about an object, when specifically object when I am talking, most of us have the misconceptions that when we are talking about object or she went upstairs. Now, when I am saying she went upstairs, she is the subject, went is a verb. Does the question what I form using what or whom gives the answers upstairs? What did I go? Whom did I go? Is the sentence, is this question formation right? No. So when I am talking about the object should only answer in terms of what and whom, not where. So the example what I gave, she went upstairs. Upstairs is something which is referring to the place, not the object. Okay, so again, went is a intransitive verb because the action is not transferred to the object. When the action is transferred to the object, or when we have an object itself in a sentence, then we call that as transitive verb. Okay, so we learnt about transitive and intransitive. Okay, and intransitive and transitive, in that itself the regular and irregular verbs are included, because depending upon the way the past tense are formed, we call them regular or irregular. Now coming back to our main topic, subject-verb agreement. Why I said about or why I told about? Yes, there was an error in my sentence, that is I told, it is I said. Actually, whenever I am referring to I and me, it is always tell. Okay, so when I refer to my previous lessons, I just mentioned about the subject-verb agreement. When I am talking about subject-verb agreement, it means the subject should agree with the verb. In the sense, if there is a singular subject, the verb also should be singular. Now, you might be wondering, what is this plural and singular in verbs? Yes, we do have plural and singular in verbs. When do we have this? We have this when we are talking with respect to third person singular. Yes. Now, always try to understand this point, that when I am referring to myself, that is I and you, okay, when I am bringing in these two things, I and you, we always use the plural forms of verb. Okay, we do not use the singular form. I is referred to one single person, yes, but in English these two are considered to be plural. So the common mistake what we do usually is I has a book. No, I have a book. I have a book is correct because the subject is one, but I is considered to be plural. So we have the auxiliary verb have. Now let me give you one simple example. Ritu dashed to the college. Now any two verbs can be replaced. Now if I want it Ritu, Ritu is the third person and again a singular. What will I use? What will be the third person singular for go? Go, went, gone and goes. So it is Ritu goes to the college. It is Ritu goes to the college. It is not Ritu went to the college, or it is not Ritu going to the college. Now when you see this sentence, you should be able to understand we are talking about the third person singular. Unless and until they tell you which tense to be given in, that is the past or the present or something which is related to the present, then you are supposed to use the third person singular when you are having a singular subject. Yes, when you are having a plural subject. They dash to a movie. Now when I say they dash, now they is a plural form. Now when I say they, it is plural form. And remember, the major thing that we follow here is nouns have added, or nouns are added with s for plural forms. Whereas for verbs there is no s added for plural forms, but the s is added for third person singular. Okay, now if I say they went to a movie, or they went to watch a movie. Let me correct it. They went to watch a movie. Now went, again, I'm not adding s here. It is just a simple basic word or verb. Okay, and that too the V2 form. When I am saying something which is related to some other person, there will be s added to it. So please bear in mind, when we are talking about subject-verb agreement, the subject and the verb should match with their singulars and plurals. If the subject is singular, the verb is singular. The subject is plural, the verb is also plural. And the exceptions are I and you. When we are talking about these two things, we will have the plural forms coming in, that is have. Okay, so this might be a major thing that you would come across in your error correction questions. Thank you.